everybody, Sarah here. So today I'm going to be wrapping up the morph intro series for the base morphs. And we're going to be going over everything from T to the end of the alphabet. Before I jump in, I want to thank all the members on this channel who helped make everything possible. You guys are amazing. I owe so much to you. If anybody else would like to become a member, you can click join under any video. There are different perks based on the different level that you choose. Everything from just like the more simple, you get the emotes and stuff like that, all the way up to we have a Discord server where we all get together and hang out sometimes. Also, a quick thank you to Reptilinks for helping to support this channel. If you would like to use my code SarahSnake27 at checkout at reptilinks.com, you will get a discount on some of this amazing food for your snakes. I also have a website, sarahssnakeshop.com, where I sell corn snakes and corn snake accessories. So if you are looking for a new pet corn snake coming up, or if the tax return is burning a hole in your pocket, I have some snakes available as well as some merch. I also have most of my snakes up on Morph Market, so if you are interested in seeing what I have available, all of this stuff that I've mentioned is linked down below. Also, please like, subscribe, and share if you are interested in more corn snake content. That is what the majority of my channel is, so any of those things are very, very helpful. Today I'm going to start us off with explaining the morph terrazzo. Terrazzo used to be called granite back before granite was being used for something else. So a lot of people are still calling them like the original granites, but most people these days are just calling them terrazzo. Terrazzo is another type of stripe. We have our typical regular just stripe morph, but then terrazzo came along later. So even though it looks very similar, it got a different name because it is actually genetically different, even though it looks very similar. Some of the biggest differences between terrazzo and stripe is that a stripe is usually going to be pretty parallel, pretty straight all the way down the body. But a terrazzo's stripe kind of fades in and out. It's usually not very consistent throughout the body. Also, one quick way to tell the difference between a terrazzo and a stripe is usually a stripe will have a separated head pattern from the rest of the body, whereas a terrazzo's will usually still be connected. These are, this is sort of like a secondary way of looking at things. So if you've kind of looked at everything else and you really still can't tell the difference, the head pattern is kind of like an additional thing that you can look at. It's not always going to be consistent like this, but it is something that you can kind of look at if you are trying to tell the difference between the two. Terrazzos are also sometimes confused for tesseras, which are a bit different, and in my opinion, it's a lot easier to tell the difference between a terrazzo and a tessera than a terrazzo and a stripe, because terrazzos and stripes, they both are a stripe type. They're just slightly different, whereas tesseras can be vastly different. Tesseras do have those patterns on their sides that are more of that vertical pattern, and terrazzo really doesn't get that too much. Tesseras can also have belly checkers, whereas terrazzos really don't. Also, a tessera's back stripe is usually going to be very thin and a very consistent width, again, from head to tail, whereas a terrazzo's stripe width is definitely not going to be consistent from head to tail usually. And speaking of tessera, tessera is the next one on the list here. As I mentioned, tesseras are going to have a very thin sort of pinstripe stripe that goes from their head all the way to their tail, usually with very few breaks in between, but there can be breaks. The sort of more high-end ones that a lot of people really like have no breaks in them at all, but you can add different morphs to tessera to make more of those like breaks happen if you like that look. And also just selective breeding and breeding over time, outcrossing, has also caused the stripe over time in tesseras in general to not be as consistent. The original tesseras did have very consistent pinstripe looking stripes, but kind of as we've gone on over the last decade or so, all of the tesseras have kind of become more varied. Tesseras also have a highly variable belly checker system going on. You will see some regular tesseras that have no belly checkers at all, and some that have almost completely black checkers. There's also everything in between. You might see some tesseras that have no checkers up like near the top of their body, whereas back near the tail they have checkers. There's some that have checkers that only line the center, which is opposite of like something like mask, where mask has a white line that goes down the center and the checkers are sort of along the outside. Tessera can do sort of the opposite. There's so many different belly patterns that a tessera can have. It's actually one of the most varied morphs out there if you are just looking at the belly pattern alone. Another one in the T section is toffee, but I already talked about toffee in the Bs because buff and toffee are very similar looking. So if you want more information on toffee, go back to the B video. I will link it above. And the next on this list is Ultra, which is a type of hypomelanistic. We've talked about hypomelanistic types before. It basically means that the black is going to be reduced to more of a gray or sometimes brown. There are a lot of different morphs in corn snakes that do this. I'm not going to go over every single hypotype morph that there is. I did do a video on it. I will link it up above if you guys want to go check that out. Ultra used to be referred to as the Ultra Hypo, but now we just have referred to it as Ultra. You mix it with amel, you get kind of something in between, which is a little bit different from most morphs. Most morphs, when you breed them together, you just get a bunch of normals that carry both of those morphs, and then you can breed those normals together, and then you can get the visuals. But when it comes to amel and Ultra, you can breed them together and get a mix right off the bat. Ultra can be a little bit difficult to point out compared to other hypotypes, but it is typically darker than most hypotypes. They usually do not have the ruby pupil. Oftentimes they will still have a green or gold iris to their eye. Usually their dark areas, like the saddle borders and the belly checkers, are going to be almost black. They're going to be dark enough that you almost can't tell that it's a hypo in many cases. Now I'm going to go over a couple more obscure morphs that are out there that we believe to actually be mutations, but we haven't really talked too much about. One of them being Weirdo. Weirdo is the morph that I did a deep dive on not too long ago, so I will link that deep dive up above for you as well. Weirdo, we also believe, is kind of a hypotype as well. Seems like anytime Weirdo is mixed with anything, they look a little bit more hypo-ish, and so we do think that Weirdo is a hypotype morph that also changes the pattern slightly. So we're kind of looking at something that's similar to Sunkissed in that it changes both the pattern and it is a hypotype at the same time. Weirdo, we are not 100% sure if it's recessive or not. It could be like incomplete dominant. I'm not going to go into all the details on that. This is an intro video just so you guys get an idea. Weirdo is going to remove a little bit of that melanin, so it's not quite as dark as a normal. They have a higher number of saddles than the average corn snake as well. Another one that is around but is not very common is the odd mutation. It is also a pattern mutation. I've not really seen this pattern mutation mixed up in too many different morphs, but we can pretty much assume it is definitely not a hypotype based on some of the morphs that it's been mixed into. And it's just a very cool pattern mutation that kind of almost looks like a prairie king snake pattern. Now, these last two morphs are going to be very, very uncommon. It's very unlikely that you will find them anywhere, but I did want to mention them in here kind of as like an honorable mention since this was sort of a shorter video this time. That is going to be it for this intro series. Now, of course, there's way more things that I can go over. So this is just going to be the sort of first section of the intro series. This all went over just the single gene mutations. So if you guys have specific questions about certain morphs, I would love to know. Or if there's any morphs that you want to add to a future intro video, like, hey, I've heard of this weird morph over here, but I don't really know what it is. Can you add it to a video sometime? That is amazing, and I would be happy to do that for you. So just let me know in the comments if you have any of those morphs in mind. There are plenty of other things out there, so there will be other intro videos like this in the future on other morphs. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed or learned something. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you in a new video soon.